Before we begin, the name is placed on the top right side of the screen. The story begins with a chaotic scene. Everything is burning down, flames reaching sky high, and walking barefoot through the flames is Lyanna. She calls Pervasia as the only one of her remaining descendants. She requests her to take her body as simply dry kindling and devour everything, as desired by this land's last Mirud, until everything becomes ash. Lyanna thinks throughout her life she has lived only as a sword for her family, seeking the revenge her father desired. She came to the realization that her family had been brutally murdered. The entire time she has been fighting without turning around, but everything she has known was a lie. She has been fighting without looking back. She had lied about everything, including her family, her beliefs, and the path that she had chosen to take, in spite of the fact that she genuinely loved and cared for them. The realization that she has embarrassed herself is the single most miserable thing that can happen to a person. Everything has been consumed by fire and reduced to ashes. The only thing that remains to haunt her is a glimmer of resentment. When did everything go wrong? What action should she take at this moment? As Lyanna was wandering, a strange existence materialized in front of her and inquired as to whether or not she believed it to be unfair and whether or not she desired to alter the course of her circumstances. She could say that she wanted to try again if that is the case. As a form of atonement, Lyanna suddenly felt her heart begin to burn. There is a burning desire to live within it. After much deliberation, Lyanna made the decision that she would seize this opportunity. She is going to be brought back to life and change this sad destiny. Lyanna vows that she will continue to do it over and over again. As the final pyromancer in the Xantar Kingdom, she is known as Lyanna la Mirud, and she is a servant of the Lord of Fire. According to Lyanna, she will never let go of this resentment no matter how long Mirud's flame continues to burn. There is no doubt that she will resurrect, and those who treated her like a puppet will never be spared from the consequences of their actions. Lyanna is reborn as a young girl with red hair than she was before. She was reborn, whether it was because of fate or because she wanted to change something. It is hard to believe that she would have made it to the Halia's den of all places, but that is exactly what happened. The child who is the most responsible is the second child, while the child who causes the most trouble is the third child. The unfortunate first son is a representation of his father in every minute detail. As far as Lyanna is concerned, the interior of this house appears to be exactly the same as it was in her previous life. She considered Alraid Halias to be her sworn enemy, and this is the Halias family, which revolves around him as the family center. On the other hand, Lyanna believes that they were being tricked into fighting, but despite this, they still had a poor relationship with one another. The second child of the Halias family, she was brought back to life thanks to Pervasia's protection, and as a result, she found herself in this peculiar family. And to her, who nearly experienced the same fate once more after being brought back to life. In her previous life, she had a difficult time getting along with her family, but now she is starting a new life with them. Lyanna gets a flashback from her past life. That day, she believed, must be the last day of her life. When we consider her life, we see that she was nothing more than a weapon for her family. How could there possibly be any regrets? The arduous training that she had undergone in order to kill the man who was standing in front of her. In front of her is a man with silver hair who is known as Alraid. He is a prominent figure on the Viant continent, and he has proclaimed himself to be the king. As the Duke of Alraid Halias, he is. After that, Alraid tells Lyanna that he will ask her one final question. And that question is whether or not she is aware of her parents, to which Lyanna responds that she is unable to provide any information to him. When he is going to kill her, he needs to do it as quickly as possible. Lyanna has made every effort to rebel against the ruthless ruler of the Halias lineage, but she has not even a single blink of an eye. This is to be expected from the harsh ruler. They have a sword master who is known as the Ghost of Halias, as well as a genius who became a scholar of the Royal Academy at an unbelievable young age. Halias is protected by a shield that employs cunning tactics and strategies. In addition, there is Alraid, who is the head of the family of Duke Halias and the father of 3 sons. The fact that she survived to carry out her father's ambitions and exact revenge on Halias is a fortunate circumstance. In spite of the fact that she is a native of the Murdy family, she was ultimately unsuccessful. Lyanna has been restrained by Alraid to a chair. Lyanna is under the impression that her father must also be feeling dissatisfied. It was all of a sudden that her father was thrown to the ground, with his hands and feet bound together. Lyanna inquires about her father's well-being when she sees him. She is of the opinion that it appears that he does not have any injuries. However, the changes that have occurred to his body are cause for concern. The Murdy family is represented by the fiery red hair that is a symbol of strength. During the course of his fight against Halias, Lyanna's father lost his abilities. It would be excruciating to lose his precious power in such a manner. Lyanna confronts Alraid with the question of what he has done to her father, but Alraid slaps her face and responds by saying that he is babbling nonsense, which is appropriate for a failed project, while still hypocritically clinging to the noble lineage of Murdy. Lyanna's father chuckles and expresses his delight at the situation. To his right, he is holding a locket. After recognizing it, Lyanna is under the impression that it is a pendant that features a portrait of Lyanna in question. For an extended period of time, her father has held it in the highest regard, as if it were a priceless treasure. While Lyanna is thinking about their magnificent castle, she also remembers her younger self with a woman with red hair. The fact that her mother does not have red hair, however, indicates that it is not her mother. Lyanna is perplexed as to why she had the presumption that she was her mother. Her mind wanders to the deplorable state of affairs that exists outside of the castle. Lyanna is experiencing a fear that her head is going to explode as everything around her is engulfed in flames. It was her father who rescued her from this calamity. However, the reality is that, in addition to kidnapping her, someone has set fire to the castle. They took her to the mountain and left her there. Apparently, she is the young Murdy of his line, according to the man. This is being conveyed to a man who appears to be mysterious and is wearing a hood. He is referring to himself as Lord Drehan. Lyanna recalls that Drehan is the ruler of the southeast region of the continent, and she also recalls that Behel is not capable of handling the situation on his own when he says that Lady Jessie will soon know the truth. It is now clear to Lyanna that everything began with them. Upon opening her eyes, sparks begin to illuminate the world around her. Whenever she opens and closes her eyes, she keeps seeing flames in her vision. Not a single thing in Lyanna's life could be considered genuine love. While being restrained on a chair in front of Alraid, Lyanna lets out a hysterical laugh. She asks Alraid to provide an answer regarding the location of her actual family members. When will the other Murdys be arriving? Alraid informs her that all of them have met their end. Drehan, who had been acting as if he were her father the entire time, laughs and mentions that Alraid has killed all of them. He also claims that Alraid is her adversary. Throughout his entire life, he has been saying it. On the other hand, Lyanna begins to cry and reveals that the day she was given her first mission was the day she turned 15 years old. After what seemed like an eternity, she finally boarded a ship bound for the mainland. There is no stopping Lyanna's tears. It is as if the blanks in her memory are being brought back to her. Following that, Drehan's hair begins to turn red in her recollection. Lyanna is informed by Drehan that their family was widely regarded as the most prestigious noble family on the continent. What caused them to be transported to this castle in the middle of nowhere? He explains to her that everything was due to the crafty plan that Alraid had designed. The large and prosperous castle that they owned was completely destroyed by fire. Her father has always told her that the only reason she seeks revenge is to exact revenge. On the other hand, Lyanna is under the impression that she has experienced a tragic end while being held in the underground prison on the miserable island of Jitak. She was only comforted by a maid named Behel, who was kind to her whenever she needed it. A locket pendant that belonged to her father was displayed to Lyanna. Lyanna was left with nothing but the will of events after she succeeded in erasing fear behind Behel. All of the remaining emotions are securely contained within a compact metal box. In light of the training that she had completed, the mission was not particularly difficult. It was necessary for her to destroy a small castle in the countryside. Alraid claims that the Chatara castle was the location. Lyanna claims that she had the urge to carry out a heinous act or crime. I was told by Behel, her nanny, that there was no one present in that castle. To say that they all perished as a result of an epidemic was a lie. It has been stated by Lyanna that she is a terrible sinner. Due to the fact that she was deeply ensnared by the rage of vengeance, she spent her entire life surrounded by hatred. She became even more enraged as a result of them all. Alraid was asked to burn her as a punishment for her sins. She claims that she is the only descendant of Murdy, and she is requesting that he burn and consume all of them in a generous manner. Where did everything go wrong? Lyanna wonders to herself. How were Drehan and Behel able to succeed in setting fire to the Murdy castle, which was a place where fire magic could not be implemented? Lyanna is pondering whether the fire mage was the ones responsible for reawakening her flame, or whether it was actually Halias, the royal palace. She is perplexed as to what error she made in her life that led to this predicament. Currently, she is filled with regret over everything. She has a deep desire to find out the truth and then simply pass away. it would have been possible for her to perform better. Having to be so dishonest was not necessary for her. She had the opportunity to endure and safeguard both her family and the entire world. A voice suddenly asks her if she feels that she has been treated unfairly, and if she would like to give it another shot. Liana is under the impression that this voice belongs to Pervasia, and she inquires as to whether or not she can live once more. Liana is of the opinion that it is extremely unfair. She had just turned 3 years old. She is resolute in her determination to resurrect her life and refusing to give up. Until the very end, she will not give in to defeat. She is the only fire mage that is still active in the service of the god of fire, which she provides to the kingdom of Xantar. Pervasia has stated that she will, but in exchange, she can only make one request. Those individuals who have manipulated and deceived her must never be forgiven of their actions. In an instant, Liana discovers that she is lying on a plush bed, and she has transformed into a young girl of 3 years of age. Liana was not expecting this. She thought trying again meant coming back to life, but she did not expect to go back to being a baby. With the fact that she still possessed the pendant that her father had presented to her, it is clear that she is still Liana and that she is still Murdy. All of a sudden, she hears the scream of someone. After giving it some thought, she is aware that she smells something that is burning. At first, she believed that was simply the smell that she had experienced when she had met Pervasia earlier, but this is not the case. The situation appears to be deteriorating. Liana is unsure whether or not she should run, but she thinks it would be best to first assess the situation. It is difficult for her to even get out of bed by herself. Being in the body of a baby is such a source of discomfort for her. With ease, she used to scale the walls of the castle, but now she is so weak that she can't even get out of bed. So in the end, she was successful. Before she can do anything, a man enters her room and tells her that she must be Liana because she has red hair and red eyes. She hopes that she is old enough to walk, but before she can do anything, something happens. He was her martial arts instructor in a previous life, and his name is Edipa Tadel. On that day, Liana comes to the realization that he was the one who kidnapped her. Concerned, Liana believes that if she is apprehended and comes into contact with Behel, everything will go back to how it was before. She makes an attempt to assault Edipa, but how precisely is it that a child of 3 years old is supposed to fight a grown man? It turns out that Edipa was successful in his mission, and he is able to remove Liana from the castle. As a result of Liana's body shaking and the fact that she believes her throat is hurting, she is unable to sound out. There is no one coming to save her despite the fact that she has been screaming so loudly. Since Liana is under the impression that she will be recognized by someone, she must conserve her strength until she encounters someone. Then, Liana recalls that if they continue on for a little while longer, they will eventually come to the dock. Edipa is constantly being cursed by Liana, who says, "Edipa, you rotten jerk," in a voice that could be considered childish. Because of this, he becomes interested, and he responds by saying that if he had just heard his name, but that is not possible. Individuals should not be aware of that particular name. Inquiring about the origin of that name, he asks Liana. Liana has just recalled that there is absolutely no way that she ought to be aware of his name at this moment. When she is tied up like this, she feels like throwing up even more than she already does. Exasperated, the doctor asks Liana why she has suddenly become quiet and why she is so pale. He is also baffled by her appearance. While Edipa is in a state of panic, he inquires of Liana whether she is hurt in any way because he needs to bring her back to him in one piece. At last, Liana throws up while she is attempting to convey that she should stop shaking. Liana recalls that in a previous life, she had drank this water in a hurry and suffered as a result. Edipa offers her some water, and she remembers that event. This time, she will only slightly moisten her throat, but not much more. As far as Edipa is concerned, he didn't even tell her to drink a lot of water. It is almost as if she is living a second life. Although it is true that it is her second life, Liana believes that he has it right. Although it is true that it is her second life, this does not mean that there is nothing to fear. Liana asks the kidnapper, using her baby voice, if he has suffered any harm to her mother today. The person who kidnapped her claims that she has been giving him the creeps for some time, but Liana continues to ask the same question. After stating that he does not know, the physician then responds by asking, isn't their family supposed to be so wonderful? Because the people who are descended from Pervasia are considered to be of such high quality. It is believed that they will perish in their own fire. Liana becomes enraged and makes an attempt to strike Edipa after she learns that even she perished in her own fire in a previous life. so he is not allowed to speak in such a manner. The break time has come to an end. In spite of the fact that she is starving, she must continue to be patient with him because he is unable to provide her with food at this time because she has just thrown up. Liana is informed by him that she must remain seated until they are able to meet the lady. Now is not a long way off. During this time, Liana is considering somebody other than the lady. In the event that she comes into contact with the sorcerer of forgetfulness, she will lose her memory and revert back to being a puppet. She will not be able to break free of her spell in any way. Liana is convinced that there is no way that she is squandering the second chance at life in such a disgraceful manner. Liana believes that they are on the verge of arriving at the dock. Due to the fact that they are currently sitting there, it is impossible for them to meet up with the lady before that and move together. She believes that she ensured Pravasia that she would lead a happy life. Contrary to what happened in her previous life, he will not simply destroy everything. She is pleading with anyone who happens to be nearby to come by, and fortunately, there is someone in the vicinity. She is yelling and yelling for assistance. She makes an attempt to assert that this individual has abducted Amurti. On the other hand, Adipa asks her if she wishes to pass away and then places her on the ground. Until she sees a man with silver hair, Leon makes an attempt to flee and keeps asking for assistance right up until that point. Although he is aware that Liana is Amurti, he is able to identify her based on the color of her eyes and hair. He claims that his name is Theodore Helias, this young man with silver hair. In the Helias family, he is the second son of the family. He draws his sword and declares that a descendant of Pravasia is the treasure that the kingdom would like to possess. In light of his young age, Liana finds it hard to believe that he is both a Helias and a sword master. It is possible that Adipa, who is currently holding a child, is in a position of disadvantage in this scenario. When Liana considers this circumstance, she does not care who emerges victorious. In the event that she is apprehended by the Helias, she is close to being dead. Liana believes that the person who kidnapped her must release her in order for her to be able to fight them off. By no means is she going to pass up this opportunity. Adipa is attacked by Theodore with his sword, but he does not attempt to avoid the attack. When Liana asks him if he is trying to protect her, he responds by saying that he needs her to be alive so that he can use her in the future. The fact that she has had enough and needs to get out of this place compels her to leap out of Adipa's grasp and make an attempt to flee. On the other hand, Theodore manages to catch her and reassures her that she is fine. She must have had a very difficult time getting here. If Liana is interested in accompanying him in the carriage, he inquires about it. He assures me that it will not be frightening. Nevertheless, Liana is considering the fact that it would be exhausting for her to be caught by Helias in this location. She is unable to overcome it mentally, and she holds this useless body responsible for everything that has happened. Liana receives a ride on the back of a boy named Piggy. Nevertheless, Liana is experiencing a feeling of nausea and vomiting because she is under the impression that the night sky and the ground are moving. Liana is able to determine whether they are on a ship or in the ocean. She is of the opinion that there is no way that Theodore could have lost. Even as a young child, she begins to cry whenever she is confronted with the prospect of returning to Lozan Island. Immediately after putting her down, the young man who was carrying her claims that he was unaware that she was awake and places her back down. In addition to Theodore, there are multiple other passengers on board the ship. Liana is asked by Theodore if she misses her mother. He also mentions that her throat must be dry and that she is probably hungry. He then inquires as to whether or not she would like some water. With this information in hand, Liana is at ease knowing that they will not be going to the island if Theodore is present. The question is, then, why are they out at sea? It would have been possible for them to arrive at Murti if they had simply gone back a little bit from there. Given that her life was saved, now is not the time to question anything that has happened. Theodore is questioned by her about their destination. She is informed by Theodore that they are going to the main base of the Helias in order to conduct some very important business. He apologizes and says that she most likely wants to go home, but he did not feel comfortable leaving her with his subordinates because there are not many powerful swordsmen on the continent who are able to use Aura. He asks Liana if the person who kidnapped her from the castle abducted her. He believes that even if he were a sword master, he would not have been able to accomplish this on his own. Anyway, Liana is no longer in danger. It is revealed to her by Theodore that he is the son of Helias, who hails from the north, and that Helias is a friend of Murti. In the name of Helias, he claims that he had made a promise to bring her back to her house. It is not a secret to Liana that they are not friends. When it comes to territorial power, they are always on guard, but even if it is a lie, there is no way to escape from this ship, so she has no choice but to play along with them. Therefore, she accepts his promise. A lady greets Theodore and Liana as they arrive at the palace the following morning. Theodore has brought Liana there. They are required to take this child to the main base, but none of them are able to provide proper care for a child. Theodore explains to her. He also tells her that they have to take this child. She inquires about Liana's name and asks her if she must have been going through a difficult time. Liana reveals her name to the lady, and she finds this to be an extremely awkward situation. However, out of all the places they could have brought her, they brought her here. He was happy to rest and clean up. The woman greets her and introduces herself as the Lady of Chitara Castle, which is the very castle that Liana destroyed in her previous life. She says that it is a pleasure to meet her. In addition to mentioning that she still has some dresses that her daughter used to wear when she was younger, the lady is very excited and suggests that they should get Liana cleaned up while the meal is being prepared. Her request to Liana is that she take a seat and wait in a comfortable manner until everything is ready. At the festival, the lady claims that she caught a glimpse of the Duke from a distance. Both the Duke and the Duchess appeared to be the epitome of elegance in good taste. She requests that Liana convey her respect to them when she returns home, and that she tells them that she prays for the Duke on a regular basis. When Liana thinks about what she did to this person in a previous life, she is filled with regret and regret. After a brief period of time, the lady has finished cleaning Liana and dressing her in some luxurious and elegant garments. The woman claims that despite the fact that it is old because her daughter used to wear it a very long time ago, it is made of cloak, which means that it ought to be warm. Liana expresses her gratitude to the lady and expresses her deep regret for the fact that she destroyed her castle in her previous life out of some irrational anger. On the other hand, the lady asserts that there is no requirement to apologize and that it is a privilege to know that she has said such things. In her current state of mind, Liana believes that she is constantly assuring herself that this cozy and compact castle will never again be destroyed by fire. Since Theodore, who is stationed at the Helia's base, reports that the weather was rough, it must have been difficult to arrive here. He is grateful that Liana was able to persevere through this. Liana, on the other hand, was under the impression that she was supposed to be of Murdy bloodline. Why does she seem to be the only one who is experiencing such a chill? If she had entered the castle even a little bit later, she would have been crushed to death by the freezing temperatures. When Theodore sees his younger brother, Cheyenne, still awake, he inquires as to the reason for his presence. Liana is unable to accept the fact that he is actually Cheyenne Halias. This youngster tops the list of the continent's most intelligent and youngest students. When they are young, even brilliant people are just cute little boys like everyone else. It is during this conversation that he informs his father that the second brother has brought another piece of trash. However, Theodore tells him that it is impolite to speak in such a manner to a lady who comes from a noble family, regardless of how young she is, and she requests that he apologize right away. Cheyenne is taken aback by the fact that it was not a doll, and he immediately rushes straight to his father to inform him that his second brother has brought something back to life. Theodore expresses his regret and explains that he is simply taken aback, but that he is not a disobedient child. However, Liana believes that she has come to the conclusion that he is also struggling with some issues when she looks at him. What kinds of activities has he been up to in his normal routine? After asking her what her name is, Theodore explains that he is quiet because she is so good at communicating. The fact that he brought someone home without even knowing her name is something that Liana finds amusing. Despite this, she makes an attempt to reveal her name and claims that it is Liana. The temperature of her lips is so low that she is unable to even successfully pronounce her own name. Liana was perplexed as to why he had to be the ghost when he first appeared into her life. But at this point, the more she looks at him, the more he appears to be nothing more than a sweet and innocent young man. The fact that he turned out to be a ghost is a mystery to her. In any case, Theodore finally gets the pronunciation of Liana's name right, and he remarks that it is a pleasure to meet her. He then introduces himself as Theodore Halias, the second son of Grand Duke Aurora Halias. Liana is under the impression that the second son of Halias has brought her back from the brink of death. Despite the fact that she does not like it, it is preferable to meeting Behel, which would cause her to lose her memory and repeat the events of the past. For some reason, the Halias castle offers a better chance of survival than any other location. There have been countless instances in the past in which she has put her life in danger by enduring rigorous training and missions. Which challenges would she not be able to face at this point? Without a doubt, she will make it through this ordeal. However, Theodore gives her a hug and tells her that they must first visit his father, which means that she must remain patient for a little while longer. The thought of Liana having to interact with the head of the family is terrifying to her. In any case, Theodore has stated that after he has met his father, the two of them will drink some soup while sitting by the fireplace. When he sees her, everyone will be amused, and he will pat her on the head of the woman. This is something that Liana considers to be extremely embarrassing for her, but she has no other option. Theodore leads her into the room that his father occupies. In the event that this is a joke, Aurora believes that he is protecting a noble child who is pretending to be a Murdy. The only thing that could save Liana is if he does not throw her out of the window. Aurora points out to Theodore that rescuing an injured animal by the side of the road is not the same as bringing a child from the Murdy clan, and he requests that Theodore send her back. That the sun has already set, and that it is snowing outside is something that Theodore is attempting to explain. There is going to be a storm during the night. It is in the name of Halias that he imparts to his father the assurance that he has made a commitment to safeguard the child. Liana, on the other hand, is experiencing apprehension simply by looking at Aurora. Liana is asked by him if she is able to speak and relay the events that have transpired at Murdy. In order for her to remain, she is required to respond to him. He claims that he was informed that Liana was saved from being kidnapped by an unknown individual and inquires as to whether or not that individual had infiltrated Murdy Castle. Theodore makes an effort to put this into words that Liana can understand. He allegedly entered the room through the window in the middle of the night, and there was a great deal of smoke coming from the castle, according to Liana. In an effort to clarify, she states that the castle was engulfed in flames. This information comes as a surprise to Theodore. According to Aurora, it is not possible for a fire to start in the Murdy Palace, which is believed to be the dwelling place of the descendants of the fire god. Liana believes that this response was somewhat forecasted and anticipated. Taking into consideration the viewpoint of Aurora, it is likely that he believes that a child of her age would not comprehend the Murdy flames. However, due to her limited vocabulary, she is unable to even articulate what she needs to say, let alone embellish the story. When that occurs, she is left with no other option but to show them. She moves closer to the fireplace and makes an attempt to grab a piece of wood that is burning. However, Theodore interrupts her and explains that he comprehends what she is attempting to convey. Despite the fact that Liana claims to be familiar with the Murdy flames, there was still a fire at their private residence. According to Liana, it is true, and she is curious about the reason why both of her parents have disappeared. In order to discuss it, Aurora is willing to sit down. Because Liana believes that it is a positive sign that they are paying attention, she proceeds to tell them the entire story. Every single word that she is saying is being misunderstood by these guys. Even Liana is unable to comprehend what she is saying to herself. In that moment, however, Cheyenne is the one who comes to her aid and saves her from the situation. Liana is attempting to convey to his brother and father that there was a fire at the castle, and that her mother was in the room next to the one where the fire was occurring. The way Liana sees it, he is a genuine savior. Cheyenne is asked by Aurora if he is interested in learning whether or not her mother was injured. His father is informed by him that Liana has expressed her desire to know whether or not her mother was injured in the fire. As a result of the power that Murdy flames possess, Aurora asserts that they pose a threat. Because of this, only sorcerers from the Murdy race are able to transfer the flames, and the hearth has been sealed to ensure its safety. Liana believes that this is the very first time that she has ever heard any of that. On the other hand, if there was a fire in that location, it indicates that there was an issue with the seal. If this were to occur, it would be a catastrophe for the entire kingdom, and Helios would also be affected financially. Therefore, for the time being, they are required to wait for the royal paperwork. Aurora inquires of Theodore whether or not he did not encounter the crown prince while he was on his way here. Theodore claims that he witnessed him arrive at the dock just as the boat was leaving, but he only made this observation from his side. When Aurora was supposed to go to the palace, he inquired as to why at all. It would have been unnecessary for him to make a stop at the dock. In his apology, Theodore explains that he was unaware that he was going to enter the territory of the Duhin clan in a covert manner, and that the kidnapper managed to flee while he was preoccupied with other things. According to Aurora, the lady will be relocated to Stonehenge as soon as the snow stops falling. However, according to Theodore, they will be informed of the news in a short while, so this is not necessary. After becoming enraged, Aurora asks, why does he constantly disobey the person who is in charge of the family? This is Theodore's apology. By bringing the lady to Helios without first obtaining his permission, Aurora claims that he should not have done so. In case of an emergency, he will move her ahead of schedule so that she can be brought back to Murdy as quickly as possible. When it comes to the promise that he made in the name of Helios, however, he must make sure that he keeps it. Lyanna expresses her gratitude for the fact that she is still alive and can maintain her current location until the snowstorm passes. In addition to reminding his brother that their brother Caliph will be returning the following day, Cheyenne inquires about the location from which he obtained this girl. Theodore is questioned about whether or not he has forgotten what Caliph said, which was that he would be in trouble if he brought another living thing into the house. As soon as Caliph arrived back at the palace, his subordinate broke the news to him that the Murdy princess was already present at the palace. Caliph requests that his servant break the news to Aurora that he needs to see him as soon as possible. The maids at Helios Palace are totally obsessed with Lyanna and see that the children of Murdy families can control fire at 7. They are curious about whether or not Lyanna will develop into someone as remarkable as she already is. Upon meeting Lyanna, they introduce themselves and inform her that they are the individuals who will be responsible for her care. Susie and Beth are their names. Additionally, Leon introduces herself to the group. They are arguing about who will be responsible for Lyanna's hair and who will assist her in washing her hair. In the midst of their conversation, Leon interrupts them and informs them that there is something more pressing. She needs to use the restroom. Later that evening, the maid places Lyanna in the chair that is reserved specifically for her at the dining table. A glass of milk is presented to Lyanna by Susie, who compliments her on how well she is doing. She explains to Lyanna that she must be hungry in order for her to be able to consume as much food as she desires and tell them whatever it is that she desires to consume. On the other hand, Lyanna is uncertain as to whether or not she is able to consume food at this moment, mainly due to the fact that she is obliged to utter that word with her own mouth in the end. In spite of this, it was essential. If she had ventured into that territory in this location, she would have been confronted with a snowstorm. Her pride, however, has been shattered. Lyanna is asked by Cheyenne if she has passed away this time, but Cheyenne is adamant that someone like her could not survive even a single day at Helios Castle. On the other hand, he might let her stay for a day and tell her that he can provide her with a nanny if she is insecure about sleeping by herself. He is watching that finger earlier. On the other hand, Lyanna believes that except for his father and older brother, there is nothing frightening in this castle. After Lyanna reveals her hand to Cheyenne, he is taken aback by the fact that there are no burns on her hand at all. He makes a phone call to his brother and requests that he witness the fact that there ought to have been flame burns. Additionally, Theodore makes the statement that it is incredible, but he also requests that Cheyenne be more polite. On the contrary, the princess is not a show. All of a sudden, Caliph appears and inquires of Theodore whether or not he is even aware that he is in a position to reprimand his younger brother. A fire broke out at the Murdy Palace 3 days ago, according to a message that Caliph says they received from the royal family. Theodore is informed of this information by Caliph. Theodore inquires as to whether or not that is accurate and severe enough for the royal family to send a message of urgency. On the other hand, Lyanna believes that it is a stroke of good fortune that she had to meet Caliph so soon after meeting the Duke. California, on the other hand, claims that their father is receiving specific information about the incident, and that in this particular scenario, the only princess of Murdy is currently located in Helios. He inquires about the appearance of it to Theodore. Theodore defends his actions by claiming that even if he had been present, he would have behaved in the same manner as he did, which was to say, like a young child writhing in the dirt and pleading for assistance. However, Caliph asserts that if he was going to act, he ought to have done so in an appropriate manner. However, the fact that the youngest sword master on the continent failed to capture even a single kidnapper is extremely embarrassing. In this castle, Theodore contemplates whether or not he will testify in such a manner. Theodore, on the other hand, recounts to his older brothers that the adversary employed Aurora. It is unfortunate that no one witnessed him being a master-level expert, but they say that he was. According to Lyanna, she was the one who saw it happen. Lyanna makes an attempt to convey to Caliph that she is aware of the kidnapper's name. However, he is unable to comprehend her baby language. On the other hand, Cheyenne arrives to lend a hand and provides an explanation of what Lyanna has just stated. Theodore expresses his surprise and inquires as to whether or not she is referring to the identity of the kidnapper. Lyanna makes an effort to pronounce the name of the kidnapper, but she is unable to do so correctly. It is frustrating for her. What is it about his name that causes her to be so upset? Lyanna claims that she is capable of writing it. The fact that she is able to write fascinates Cheyenne. Cheyenne reports that he did not begin learning to write until he was 4 years old, and he inquires of Lyanna whether or not she is capable of writing. On the other hand, Lyanna takes a piece of paper and makes an attempt to scribble something on it. But as one might expect from a body that is only 2 years old, she is unable to write correctly. Calife is of the opinion that she appears to know letters, and she inquires of Lyanna whether or not she has written the letter Psi. Yes, Lyanna responded. Despite the fact that Calife claims he has never heard of this family name, he will have to search among the Aurora users in order to find more information about it. He inquires of Lyanna how she was able to determine the identity of the kidnapper, given that there ought to be no connection between Murdy and Sickle. Lyanna believes that she is bereft of options and is obligated to disclose everything. According to Lyanna, he had the intention of taking her to Lausanne. Calife is under the impression that the kidnapper disclosed his name and destination to him while he was abducting the princess, which is a reasonable assumption to make. It's possible that he was able to relax his guard, or that he said it in order to reassure the child. According to Theodore, he would not have imagined that a sword master would be unable to locate a child who was only 3 years old. Regardless, it is necessary for them to share the tale with their father. Exactly at that moment, their father arrives and informs them that there is a message sent to the princess. It comes from the palace, and it is a message. They say that the legacy of the Murdy family has come to an end as a result of a significant fire. That evening, nobody was able to consume any food. Lyanna sobbed until she vomited all of the water out of her body. Despite the fact that they were hovering around her, the two brothers were uncomfortable, so the Duke dragged them away. Lyanna believed that she had once again fallen into the position of an orphan in this life. Once again, she was unable to find a place to go back to. These words from Aurora caused her pitiful body to become unconscious, and the Duke expressed his regret to her. He also told her that he was sorry. Even when she awoke the following morning, she continued to cry through the night. If the sky had fallen on her, the sunrise would have been the same as it always is. There was a sense of emptiness within it. Starting from the moment she opened her eyes, she had a hazy feeling about what was going to happen, based on the odor and the movement that she observed deep within the castle. She was aware that one could never get back what had been lost, even if new opportunities presented themselves. However, she was also aware that she could not continue to cry indefinitely. She took a look at the pendant that contained a portrait of herself. She told them that she was a Murdy, that she was still alive at the time, and that she was the only Murdy that was still alive. While she was crying, she needed to find Aurora so that she could hear what she had missed. Instead of taking her to the Murdy castle, she expressed her desire to request that he take her to the palace. As a result of the Murdy's hair, Precaution did not have to provide any evidence of her identity in order to receive protection from the palace until she reached the age of maturity. However, there was an eerie lack of noise. Following that, she became aware of the voices emanating from her room, which were Theodore and Calife's voices. Theodore approached the royal family with a sense of mistrust. Despite the fact that no one was paying attention, Calife questioned his father about the people who benefited from this destruction. He asked him to be careful. During the time that everyone was in a state of profound grief, the royal family was the only ones to acquire Murdy's fertile southern lands. In the event that the spirit stone belonging to the royal family was involved, Lyanna believed that they would be able to set Murdy ablaze. During the time that man from the past was in charge of that precious princess, it was not difficult to sneak a pita into the princess's room. Nobody was able to locate her. In her mind, if the royal family was the one responsible for this, then everything made perfect sense. Theodore pleaded with his brother to refrain from making idle remarks. The kidnapper was aware that he was from the Hellias, and as a result, he was also aware that Lyanna was present for the decree that he sent. Despite this, Calife suggested that the royal family might be putting them to the test. There is a possibility that they would give them half of the Murdy's territory if they offered the neck of the princess. Despite the fact that Lyanna was terrified and believed that it was unfair, this was the reality. She was unsure of what path she ought to take. She pondered whether or not she ought to flee. However, Theodore drew his sword on his older brother and stated that the princess was protected under Helias's name. He also stated that if he spoke in a cowardly manner, even if he was not his brother, he would not forgive him. Calife was told by the Duke that he should apologize if he believed that Helias was such a weak name that it would curry favor with the royal family by shedding the blood of a child. The Duke asked both of them to stop and then said to Calife that he should apologize. But Aurora asked Theodore if he would draw his sword even if his brother became the head of the organization. even if his opinions were different from his brother's. Theodore also expressed his regret. He had acted without thoughtfulness. Aurora, on the other hand, stated that there was no immediate need to disobey the royal family and that there was no reason to cause harm to the princess. It was only when she was a young child. It would be sufficient for them to claim that they unexpectedly came across her and brought her to the palace. When they were dealing with Murdy, they would be too busy. After that, the royal family would establish a proxy to govern Murdy until the princess reached the age of majority. There was no reason to exert any pressure against Helias. Aurora pleaded with everyone to comply, but Leon entered his room and pleaded with him not to abandon her. They were the ones who had demonstrated even a small portion of what it means to be human. Despite the fact that she was aware that it might put them in harm's way, she asked to be allowed to cling to them for just this one time. Even though she was still unable to do so, she desired to reignite her flame, and if she succeeded in doing so, she would be grateful to them for their generosity. In the event that she went to the palace, she would perish, and she desired to continue living this new life that she had just about finished acquiring. It turned out that she was unable to obtain an answer at that very moment. According to Theodore, she should go to her room and rest for a while. Helias could be labeled as a traitor if things did not go as planned, and Leon was aware that they would not be able to make a decision right away. Therefore, they must exercise caution. She knew, and the fact that she knew made the situation even more terrifying. After her tears had stopped, Leona pondered whether or not she would be able to think about tomorrow. When Leona was approached by a maid, she was informed that she had been with Lord Theodore and that she was curious about where Leona had gone. Dorian, Shine's nanny, was the name she gave when she introduced herself. She was a relatively elderly figure. Theodore inquired as to the reason for her visit to Leona. According to Dorian, she came because Shine had asked her to. Earlier in the evening, Shine had requested that she stay with Leona. Leona was informed by Dorian that the head chef had also prepared a delectable cheese souffle, and Dorian inquired as to whether or not they should go inside and eat something together. Leona believed that despite the fact that he was aware of Murdy, she could sense his smile and consideration being directed toward her in an effort to reassure her. It was a stroke of good luck that Theodore was present when she needed to relax and unwind. Theodore expressed his regret and stated that he had to leave immediately. He then requested that Leona get plenty of rest and that they would meet again at a later time. Since their chef's cheese souffle was well known across the continent, it ought to be able to improve her disposition. In spite of the fact that he was going against his family, even Theodore took care of her. Although she found that she was relying on these individuals more and more, she was curious about the means by which she could win the Duke's affection. While this was going on, the nanny put Leona to bed and then inquired about how she was able to get out of bed on her own. She claimed that Leona was a mother to Lady Cecilia, and that she had a striking resemblance to Lady Cecilia. Lady Cecilia Lamurdi was a woman who was on par with the flame itself, and she was the most skilled pyromancer on the continent. Even a person of this nature would not be able to avoid the terrible outcome. On the other hand, Leona believed that it was quite unusual for a Helias to have such a deep understanding of her mother. A story that Dorian promised to tell her was going to be very interesting. Leona contemplated the events that were taking place. As a matter of fact, she was not 3 years old, and she was not interested in stories from the past, but rather in stories from the future. On the other hand, the nanny started the story by saying, "Once upon a time, there was a beautiful and joyful princess whose hair was as fiery as flames." Considering that it was about her mother, Leona pondered whether or not she was making this up for her. In the next part of the story, Dorian continued by stating that the princess possessed a great Murdy power, which was fire. In front of her, everyone praised her and bowed down to her, but behind her back, they were speaking negatively about her. A knight with silver hair appeared one night, and the princess, who had been living a solitary life and hiding herself, was surprised to see him. The knight was the most skilled swordsman on the continent, and he had no fear of the princess being in his presence. He became the princess's friend and did not care about being impolite or jealous of her for any reason. Leona was curious about the nature of the story before her. On the other hand, Leona had already fallen asleep when Dorian reported that the princess had risen to great heights in the world and was no longer loneliness. Dorian pondered whether or not Leona had become disinterested in her story. However, Leona believed that the reason was simply that a happy ending seemed to be too far away. She wished that her mother was as content as the character in the story. In the morning of the following day, Leona continued to sleep until the afternoon.